Greetings and thank you all for attending our Toolbox Talk today that we'll be holding over excavations. I am Tanner Moore.
And I'm We Connect.
Excavations and trenches are such features in the construction industry that we'll be working with on a frequently or even a daily basis. We shall first go over some objectives. Identify a trench, review fatality reports, be able to distinguish different components of trenches, identify possible hazards, and identify protective measures.
As seen in these two pictures, one depicts an excavation here, and the other depicts a trench. Typically, a trench is greater in depth than it is in width. Typically, it's no wider than 15 feet at the bottom, while an excavation is any man-made cavity on the Earth's surface formed by an earth removal.
Working in trenches can be a great danger and certainly require proper training and safety systems to be in place. In this picture here, we can see a New York man that died on June 14th, 2002. He was working a trench only 10 feet deep when he was buried alive by the collapse of the trench. He did not make it home that day, and that could have been easily prevented.
Between 2011 and 2015, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 94 American workers were killed in a trench collapses. In 2016, 23 U.S. workers died and 12 were injured in collapses. That is on average nearly one death per 2 weeks in the U.S. This is why it's crucial to have the utmost safety during any type of excavation, and why there should be some sort of protective system in place on this incident or any others to prevent any catastrophe. This is a perfect example of a failure by a company where there's no reason for life to be lost.
OSHA categorizes soil and rock deposits into 4 different types. Stable rock is the first one, which is able to have vertical sides with no cracks present. For example, granite is a common type that may be classified as stable rock. Type A is commonly a clay or clay loam type soil. Type B is typically a silt or angular gravel type material. And lastly, type C is usually a fine sand or gravel material.
Depending on any soil type you may encounter, it will determine the slope or the angle of the pose, which is the ratio of the width to the height. Type A requires a 3/4-to-1 ratio or a 53-degree angle. Type B is a 1-to-1 or a 45-degree angle, and type C, which is commonly loose, is a 1.5-to-1 or a 34-degree angle. As you can see on the left side of this slide, there is an example of how to calculate the slope needed for a trench being 6 feet deep and 2 feet wide.
Here we can see the 2 in-depth examples of common practice on how to deal with reducing the risk of while being in a trench. The one on the left is depicting a benching, while the one on the right is depicting sloping.
Here we see some general hazards for any type of trench excavation and cave-ins. As you can see on the top are the leading hazard when working in a trench. Although there are other many hazards, as you see, associated with a trench, many people do not understand or grasp the entire concept of safety when it comes to this, but it's very important to understand.
If you have worked in or around a trench, you can see that it is quite difficult, and there are many occupational hazards that you may be exposed to. Although it is imperative that you understand and are able to recognize the signs of these different hazards.
In the preparation of any trench work, it is important to have a safety plan prior to the start of work, outlining any emergency actions that workers must follow in the event of an emergency.
Such safety actions pertaining to the type of hazard may include trench boxes in the prevention of cave-ins, locates in the prevention of striking an underground utility, and soil borings to view the changes in the soil types as you go deeper into the ground. And this will prevent the possibility of hitting any hazardous waste materials or even a possible gas release.
In excavation of a trench, shielding and shoring can be a crucial aspect in the prevention of safety hazards. As shown on this slide, these pictures depict the two different types of protective systems required in a certain loose soil types, and depending on the depth of excavation or trench.
Depth plays a main factor in the type and location of the trench that will require a protective system in place. As per OSHA, you are required to have such items as a trench box or shoring at a minimum of 5 feet deep, and at a depth of 20 feet, you must have a structural engineer certify the protective system that you will put in place for your workers. A competent person shall be on the site at all times to inspect the trench. As OSHA states, they must inspect trenches daily and after changing conditions, such as a heavy rain or a freeze or thaw condition.
On this slide, we see the showing of a proposed trench here and the measurements of what a working space and where the temporary soil taken out of the ground should be stored and how far away. Here on the right, we see a real life example, and you can tell that they have their safety systems in place, and they have a good working space, as well as their temporary soil is away from the trench to prevent any falling or cave-ins from that.
At this time, we'd like the instructor to pause the video and take a look at the 3 examples, and if you students can identify any of the possible safety violations in either of these 3 pictures. Thank you all for listening and participating in this Toolbox Talk.
We hope you come away from today with more knowledge of excavation and trench construction and are able to apply this in class and upcoming internships. We thank you for the COVID and understanding that we can't be in class today, but we're hoping that you can take away something.